Yeah, we're live. It's 6:28. Hopefully everybody was doing well on the weekend, and hopefully everybody had a good Friday night. It's Friday. We all have jobs, almost all of us. But tonight, what I want to talk about is which would you choose? So, and we're going to get into a little bit here because I get a lot of questions about really adding them together, which is always a good idea, or at least seems like a good idea. But then, which one do you get to do the thing that you want to do? So let's take the average guy. He's got a, maybe you got a stock LS, a 4.8 or 5.3, or even a 6.0, and it's between 300, 330 and 400 horsepower. Let's say it's a stock one, a stock camshaft. Maybe you put a cam in it, but what you want to do is you really want to add 150 horsepower. That's a big gain. It's a big change relative to the NA power output. It's 40. It's getting in the 40, 50%. Let's say that you wanted to add that much. Now, we know that, first of all, as a percentage amount, that's a lot. Now, if we're looking at a 500 or 550 horsepower motor, you might be thinking, oh, now, Richard, we need to be talking about 1,000 horsepower, 2,000, 3,000 horsepower. No, we don't, because the vast majority of people would be going to get that kind of motor and then doing something to it. And so that's a really big part of the industry, way more than the 2,000. I mean, I love seeing my buddy Jimmy just sent me a video, a link to a guy doing an SR20 and making 2,300 horsepower with it, with like 120 pounds of boost or whatever. It's awesome. But he's the only guy to ever do that. So that's one guy. It's super cool, and I love watching it, and I love hearing that guys can get to that level, which is very, very cool. And now he wants to, because he thinks he's past the structural integrity of the cylinder head, which is, that's when you can get there. You're doing cylinder pressure stuff where you get there where that becomes a problem. So he wants to do a billet head and stuff, and he wants to go to 200 pounds of boost or whatever, and then get to he's like, well, okay, the math tells us that we're at 3,000 horsepower, and right off the bat. So we'll step away from our discussion of what we're talking about, but now that we've gone down this SR20 hole. Jimmy and I were talking, and immediately, like, my response is, yes, this is awesome. And I'm thinking this has to be like a compound boost thing, because otherwise you wouldn't have those kinds of pressure ratios. But my question was, and I don't remember seeing it. And if somebody has watched it, let me know. I don't remember seeing anything on the NA power output, because the guys that are building turbo motors, this is why I do this. This is why I go to the trouble of doing this. I want to know what the NA power is, because then I want to know if the amount of boost that you're running, whether it's 7 pounds or in his case 100 plus pounds of boost, I want to know if the amount of NA power that he's making correlates to the amount of power that you would be making at that high of a boost. The other thing that I would want to know now, and I just kind of thought of this, is I would want to know what the charge temperature is at that. Before, I'm sure it has multiple intercoolers. I need to go watch the video. Obviously, he just sent me the clip on it, and I just was looking at a little bit at it. But I want to know all that, because I've never run anything that's near 100 pounds of boost or anything. 30 is the most I've ever gone, and I'd like to see what it is up there. I mean, is it is it 10 horsepower per pound of boost, like some people want the numbers to be? Is even at that, when you start getting multiple things at 100 psi and 10 degrees per pound of boost, that's 1,000 horsepower charge temperature. I know that you're bringing that down with multiple intercoolers, and hopefully ice water in doing this in between both of the setups there. Maybe multiple intercoolers in line or something. I don't know. That's not my field there, but it is cool. And like I said, I wanted to see what the NA thing did. And I think that this thing was running like lots of RPM, like 5-digit RPM levels too, which makes sense, because he wants to, and rightfully so, wants to minimize torque production, like we've all talked about with the Big Bang stuff, because the pressure ratio is high and the power is so high that he doesn't want it to have like the gigantic cylinder pressure. So if you can have peak power occur at 10,000 or 11,000 or 12,000, whatever the number is, then it's less torque. And so it's less cylinder pressure. So that's a better deal. And if he's concerned about cylinder pressure, if he's making so much cylinder pressure that it's a problem with the structural integrity of like hard parts, that's something that you have to do. It's pretty interesting. But I like to have all that information. We were talking about that hey, look, what's the NA power output? And then we're multiplying it. Like that's like this kind of pressure ratio. And so is the NA motor making 200 horsepower or 300 horsepower? Like what's the NA power output? And then you multiply that out. I'm like, it seems like the pressure ratio is really high for the power level that they're at, even though it's an amazing amount of power. But then I got to thinking, oh, the reason that it's that high, that it's higher than it would be that the formula suggests, one is because it's an astronomical amount of power. But the other reason is that it's a compound turbo. And then we always see much higher pressure ratios on compound turbo stuff relative to the power output. It's no longer follows the formula when you're doing compound stuff. The boost pressure is very high relative to the power output. So it's that too. But very cool. But coming back to our original discussion is so that's way out in that where land, which again, awesome. But the vast majority of people go to a wrecking yard, get an LS or a small block Chevy or Dodge or Ford or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm giving the Dodge guys love. Get that kind of motor and then, or have that kind of motor in their car or truck or whatever, and then kind of want to hop it up. And then what do we do? Well, power adders are really good. Obviously, in most of these things, you would do some kind of camshaft. You could put a low buck truck camshaft in it. It's an LS. Put some sort of small camshaft in it if it's a VORTEC 350 or an LT1 or a Dodge Ram or whatever it is. You could put, just make it a little bit better, let's say, and then go, okay, now I have this 350 horsepower motor, maybe 400, probably more like 400 if it's an LS, but 350 if it's all of these other ones. And so we have that. And so now I'd like to get up, 500 seems like a nice number. So if I got 350 and I want to add 150, I can add 150 shot to a 350 horsepower NA motor. So we put it if it's a carbureted deal, just put a simple plate system on it. You can put a 150 single fogger nozzle deal, a wet deal if it's an EFI thing. That would be getting up near the limit of what I would want to run through long runner intakes. Maybe if you could just do that, the hot setup for that we've talked about this is just inject that nitrous into the manifold. Just put one of these plastic or even aluminum long runner kinds of EFI manifolds that we're used to seeing now. Just run the nitrous through it and then put the fuel in with the injector if you have the ability to control that. That's a better way to. The nitrous usually has a more even distribution if you're just spraying that and not spraying fuel in some of these long runner intake manifolds. So you can certainly get 150 shot in there and make that kind of power. So you make 500, you got 350, you make 500. And one of the things is, no, you don't need a camshaft that's a nitrous cam that's specific to that. All we're looking at, and all you should be looking at anytime you're looking at this, is what does my base power curve look like? What does my NA power curve look like? And then what am I doing? What thing am I employing to add to that? If we add nitrous, boom, you hit the nitrous and whoop, the curve goes up. And just if you did the right amount of timing to pull, depending on the octane that you're using, and that you have the right air fuel ratio, so you have the tune right on the nitrous, it just follows what the curve is there. Just nice little railroad tracks there. And the earlier that you hit that, the more torque that you're going to have, the bigger hit that you're going to have. Nitrous feels awesome when you nail it. It's like booze. It gets addictive. You're like, oh, that feels awesome. You know, it'd feel awesomer is like this 100 shot's not enough. A 150 would be good. And then you get used to the 150 and then that's 200 and then it's a blown motor. But that would be really easy. Also, the other option is, and I didn't pick turbo here because I think most guys would go turbo, but what if we did a blower? What if we did a centrifugal blower? There's TORQSTORMs and VORTEC superchargers. The guys from VORTEC, Airflow Research, Brian Tooley Racing. Thank you guys for helping support the channel. But if we had like a VORTEC, you just need a S trim or something small, even a self-contained one. You can run it as a blow through for a carburetor, run it, obviously feed it into an EFI setup, and you have the ability to tune that, get big enough injectors and a pump like we do, blow through on an LS. They have kits that are like I've run many times on the LS side with a VORTEC. And again, same thing at PROCHARGER. They have blower kits, and the guys from TORQSTORM have specific blower kits for all these different applications. But pretty easy to add like 150 horsepower to a 350 horsepower motor, because you're only talking about less than less than a 50% gain. If we're doing 350 and 150, it's less than a 50% gain. So it's going to you run 7 pounds or whatever, and it's 7-8 pounds or whatever. It's definitely going to be that, at least that, and maybe a bit more than that. So it's pretty easy to get that with any of these blowers. They certainly can support that, and it's gonna get you up to that number if that's your goal. If you say, okay, I want to make 500, okay, here's where I'm starting. This is where I'm gonna get to. Nitrous or the blower. Question is for you guys, which one of those would you pick? So we'll do a poll based on that. Okay, would you pick nitrous over a blower to add 150 horsepower to your 350 horsepower junkyard motori? And honestly, it doesn't really matter how the poll comes out, because there's no losers here. Everybody gets a participation trophy. But the thing is, both of them work very well. I've run lots and lots of nitrous on stuff, and not just on the engine dyno, but yes, out in the real world. I've run lots and lots of that stuff. Have driven lots and lots of blower cars on that out on the mean streets, and it worked. And both of them work very, very well. I got nothing but good things to say. Obviously, the answer to this is, as always with any kind of choosing a power adder, is just to run both. Particularly, I would argue with a centrifugal supercharger, because you're going to have, you have a rising boost curve. So the rising boost curve, you only got 2 or 3 pounds down here or whatever. I mean, if you're only running 7, you might only have a pound down low. That's a perfect spot. Just whack that thing with a 75 or 100 shot or whatever, and get it going all the way through the curve. I have run nitrous, had run nitrous on my 5-liter Ford with the VORTEC supercharger, and it worked exactly like you would think it does. If you think about it, well, does and here's the question, because people get confused about stuff like they do with cam timing, and does this cam work with the blower? Does this cam work with nitrous? Yes, they all work with all the stuff. Well, can I run the blower with nitrous? Yes, you can. The thing is that you want the tune to be correct, so you don't want it to detonate. If it doesn't detonate and you have the right amount of fuel and the right amount of timing, all of those things work together. So if you think about it this way, what do we always say about running a blower or nitrous? Okay, we have our NA, our base NA curve, whatever that is. Whatever thing you got from the wrecking yard, whatever thing you put a cam in or whatever, we've got some NA curve. Forget about what the camshaft is. Forget about all that stuff. It doesn't matter. You have this curve. You have this power output. It's produced 350 horsepower and 370 foot-pounds of torque or whatever it is. This is what it looks like. Okay, now we added a VORTEC to that. Now we have a rising boost curve. So now we've got 520 horsepower out at the top. And then now we have 468 foot-pounds of torque, just off the top of my head. And then so now we have a climbing, boost curve, a climbing power curve. It makes peak power a little bit higher than it did before because it has a rising boost curve. That's what VORTECs do. Now we have this curve. We don't have this curve anymore. We have this curve. And now what? Okay, if we add nitrous to that, what's going to happen? Well, we're going to start out with this because we have our boosted curve. Now we have this. You hit the nitrous. Hey, look, it jumped up 100 horsepower. Still has boost. Still following the boosted curve up. Still doing what the original motor was that we're adding nitrous to. That's what happens. And so if you had both of those, depending on where you add the nitrous, do you want to add the nitrous down at 2,500 RPM? That's pretty risky. Most of the people would run it from 4,000 to 6,000 because that's where you'd be doing your, drag racing acceleration. But you could add it down low. We've run it really low before. I've also blown up air boxes and backfired and done some bad things when we're trying to do that. But you could decide where you thought that was like acceptable, where you can add that to. Like on a lot of motors, a motor that makes peak power at 5,000 RPM, you're going to be hitting it before, before the crossover 5252. You're going to be hitting it down low. You might run it from 2,500 to 5,000 or to 5,500. And so it would be happening down low because that's the meaty part of the power curve. So you could decide whether or not you want to do that. Do you got good gas? Do you have the right amount of timing taken away? Because it would have lower timing with the boost. And then on top of that, it would have a lower timing again with nitrous. And this is particularly for the guys that would be wanting to try this foolhardily on pump gas, but that's all good. So where are we at on our poll here? Would you pick nitrous over a blower to add 150 horsepower to your 350 horsepower junkyard motor? Yes. 54% are picking the nitrous, 56%, 54%. It's bouncing back and forth. We're getting the votes in right now. I got 90 people here. We got 36 votes. Everybody get the vote in. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I want you guys to let me know in the comments, is obviously I'm doing the Bonneville thing with the Sprint and not doing that with the Metro. So the Metro is just sitting. In fact, I posted on Instagram to see if anybody wanted it for anything. If anybody wants to buy it for me cheap or trade me something cool. I don't know, an electric scooter or whatever something that somebody would have that they think might be cool that I might be interested in because I like cool stuff, to trade for that. The other option, I wanted you guys to let me know what you thought, is do you think that this would be a good car that Richard Holdner Performance, because we need to start going to LS Fest. I think we need to just be there and be able to talk to people and pretend like we're cool and stuff. And so would the Metro be a good car to either front wheel drive swap like an LS4 into, or even better, I think if we were going to do it, and we have to do it that way anyways, is rear swap it as an LS4. And I know guys are going to say, no, dude, do the twins. That's already been done. Lucky and Tony already did that Twin Pala or whatever, which was very, very cool. We don't need to do that, but we could face them the other way so that they could work against each other and then just do a burnout contest between the two sides so that the one would spin the wheels one way and one would spin the wheels the other, and they would both try to just go in and we could turn the wheel and then it would just spin like a top. That would be awesome. But I mean, it'd be enough work just to cut everything up, because you'd have to cut basically the whole car out just to make all this work. But if we did like an LS4 engine and drivetrain without that stupid intake manifold, but the 4T65 or whatever it is, some kind of 5.3 or whatever, and we could put our asymmetrical turbo on there and do something fun with it. Put that either in the front or I think it'd be better to put it in the back. I mean, it'd be more visible in the front for people to see it, but it'd be better if it was in the back, So, and I don't know, I haven't taken the measurements to see how all that works, but if you were going to do that, the way that you would make that all it has to do is run and drive. I'm not going to take it down the drag strip or anything, probably. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to do that, but if you were going to do that, you're hacking and slashing everything anyways. Maybe it'd be a wide body thing or whatever, and if it's in the back, maybe it'd be like a wheelie popper, be popping wheelies with it, which that would be, it'd be worth doing that just for that. Have to tell Jimmy to get the welder out. So I'll see what you guys got going on. Hopefully we'll get down to where people are talking about that as well. Paul Jordan, Infamous, what are you guys doing, man? We are on time. Boost and the bottle. The weight camshaft. I'm early for once. I need to see the right camshaft. Obviously, the camshaft is not right. OG, what's going on with you? Okay, let's get rid of this DB. Yeah, that makes things a lot nicer. Blower, I have the power. I like having the power available for every time I decide to mount the throttle. Have you guys seen running compressed air induction? Yeah, I've seen that. That's cool. If you need 200 pounds of boost, build a bigger motor. Just watching the short, yeah, it's pretty cool. Don't even know what can for 12,000 RPM. Never seen one. Sad part about getting addicted to turning up the boost is when you run out of fuel system. Yeah. Run out of tuning talent, all of that. I do turbo first to save money. Luckily, I'm doing NMA, so I don't have to worry about that. Currently assembling an LS6 to replace the LS1 on my Camaro. Bottle fed 130 shot. That'll be good. Makes a big difference. I've always viewed nitrous as a shortcut, kind of an easy way out. I didn't put nitrous on my 355 until I was running 1120s at 120, 175 shot, put it at 1010s, 132. Yeah, it's if you're there and you're that close to the next level where you want to be at, it's an 11-second car. You know, even though it's a low 11-second car, you want it to be a 10-second car. But now the problem is, if you're at a 1010, now you'd want it to be a 9-second car because it got too close. You made too much of a difference. Nitrous is the best bang for the buck. 65 Paxtons for small block Fords are very cool in the Shelbys. Would Brodex 325 Dragon Slayer heads be good for a 496 with HP rods? Scat crank dome pistons be good for 100 horsepower NA? Do you mean would the heads gain 100 horsepower over what? Today I picked the TORQSTORM to compare to the Paxton. Well, and not just names of blowers, but specific blowers, because obviously there are different VORTEC superchargers, different sizes, different PROCHARGERs, and now we have different TORQSTORMs and then different size Paxtons too. So if you're picking a 600 horsepower, 700 horsepower blower versus 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, I don't know how big they go. I think they might go that big. You know, you got to just compare the two. You have to keep paying for nitrous. Depends on where I want the power on the track. Nitrous is more controllable. The street, the blower's always there. Would a turbo be good for a 230 Chevy? Yeah, I did a turbo on the 292 Chevy. Turbos work for everything. Boost is always good. Picked a supercharger for my C10 because my collector car insurance company asked me specifically if it has nitrous. Nope, it doesn't. Just an old C10. Might even have a straight 6 in it. Exactly. Did they? They didn't offer any of those with 4 cylinders, did they? That wasn't ever a factory option for the trucks. I'd like to see you at LS Fest with one of the dyno combos. All-wheel drive LS Metro. Yeah, it wouldn't be all-wheel drive, but I've been against nitrous my whole life till I met you. It made me confident now using nitrous. Everyone should try nitrous. It shouldn't be something that you would be against. That'd be like being against Boost or being against pretty girls. You know, there's no reason to be that way. It is cool. Now, if you don't choose it and you want to choose Boost or whatever, yeah, I get behind that choice, 100% for like all your choices that you have out there in the world. But you should try it and experience it just because it's really cool. I mean, when you are driving down the road at wide open throttle and you're accelerating at the rate that your vehicle accelerates, and then you hit a button and then all of a sudden it accelerates at a whole different rate. That's just awesomeness. Use a different swap for your LS swap. Yeah, we are putting in the Mustang's getting an LS. How do you feel about a blower on a bored out 5.3 aluminum block, a 427? If you're making a 427 out of a 5.3, then you're doing a sleeved one, right? So it's more than just a bored 5.3. Because if you're trying to make a 427 out of 5.3, that's not going to be very successful. And also, usually when Boost is there, you don't necessarily need the more displacement, but it's always helpful. I have an E30 BMW Gen 4 aluminum 5.3 working on a 99 Impreza Coupe STI adapter to aluminum 5.3. The Borgwarner S470. I'd like to eventually bring both to LS Fest. That would be cool. Everybody would be happy that you swapped a Subaru. LS swapped the Subaru. Nitrous and blower. Nitrous has gotten very expensive lately. Blow through carb is necessary to use extended vent tubes pointed in the airstream. We've run lots of them both ways. We've run lots of them without, and we've run some of them with because we were trying to cure various other issues. I don't think it's mandatory, and it depends on what level you're at. Nitrous needs 2 tubes. Nitrous gives you the wah, wah, wah. If you want, my stuff is all street vehicles. I feel like nitrous would be a hassle making sure the bottle was on. Also, I saw Fox Body that the bottle blew up. I guess you don't want to leave it in your car. I don't think that that's a real thing. Given the fact that people heat these things up with torches, and which is a terrible idea, and have bottle blankets, I mean, even if it got to 150 or 160 degrees inside your car, I just don't, the bottle would have to be defective for anything like that to happen. Supercharger's there and ready to use. So what do you guys think about the Metro? Should that be front drive or rear drive LS swapped? And then before that, should we blow up the little Metro motor? Would you just be at the West Coast LS? No, we could do the other one too, or more than one, because Jimmy's in Georgia. So we could make it to multiple. Rear drive, yeah, rear drive. I'm leaning toward the rear drive just because I think it'd be cool to get it to do wheelies. So there'd be nothing up front. I mean, other than people, basically. But it'd be cool if it was like the Camaro on the Fast and Furious, the F-bomb replica that they had in there. But they had like 1,000 or 1,500 pounds of weight in the trunk of that thing. So that thing would actually wheelie on dirt. And when you have a pivot like that, that's the thing. It had the engine up front. If we have the engine in the back, then that's not an issue anymore. Rear drive for wheelies, yeah. Put a V6 on the Metro, kind of like a V8 MR2. An MR2, I loved my MR2. I had an 86, but that with a K series in it would just like a 200 horsepower, even a 250 or 300 horsepower K series, or a 600 horsepower K series, because it have to be turbocharged. Wheelie. Yeah, that would be if we got the Metro to do wheelies, then we could do a shirt like that. A wheelie. Doom boogie wheelies. Would it just be the West Coast? Actually, it'd be more likely be the East Coast ones. Oh, what happened there? Okay, I'm back. Because it probably would do the welding and stuff at Jimmy's place. Honda on a laptop. Kyle the Boosted Boys has 1,000 horsepower K24 as an MR2. Yeah, the drag race deal. Would you ever do a build up like the Bone Mark for the channel? I don't know what Bone Mark is. I'm not familiar with that. Front drive LS4. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, Steven. That's what we were talking about for the Metro. 5.3 will fit in a Golf GTI. It will, but everything may have to be pushed out. So then it would be like kind of like a tube one. All-wheel drive LS would be cool. Then it would be better to just put the Metro body on top of some sort of shortened LS swapped Blazer chassis or something, rather than try to make everything into the Metro if you're going to do an all-wheel drive thing. Or the other thing I like is I like those like ultra lowered cars that people do that they drive around in, where it's like just this much of the, this much below the window, and then the top of everything's been all chopped and everything. So the driving down the road, and it's like about how much ever from your base to here is that they're just driving down the road with that, that is kind of cool too. The bone marrow. It's a lot of stuff under the hood. I'll have to look that up, and I don't know what that is. Yeah, it's not coming up under that kind of search. Yeah, the super chop stuff. Out in the shop, putting 2650 on a truck, watching the best show on YouTube. Tom, making it happen. Let me know what happens. Have you run a 2650 on one of your setups before? Front wheel drive LS, have 2 week of transmissions. If you're set up on a Metro LS, definitely do rear wheel drive and set the engine back as far as possible. Yeah, we wouldn't do a rear wheel drive with a conventional transmission, and we would be sitting next to that where the engine stuff is. We would do a rear wheel drive, a front wheel drive setup, but in the back. You see the world's lowest cars, I think a Honda that's basically only a roof. Those are the ones I'm talking about, Jordan. The driver has to lay prone. It's powered by a lawnmower, yeah. And I've seen Honda versions of that, and I've seen for some fairly cool VW bus. I mean, it's just the top of the bus basically, and so these guys are laying down. But you know, that's kind of cool. I think that would be cool, except have the have it all lower like that, but have a big LS sticking out of the hood, kind of like the old Zinger cars were, where it was just all motor. So have a, because I've got some Zoomies that the guys from Stainless Headers sent me. So an LS with Zoomies and a blower and all that stuff. Tom, you did it on a 5.3. Did you make a lot of power? Like a 2650 is 4-digit power level stuff. That's a lot. That's a lot of blower. CNN or CN, what did they do on the bone marrow? Is that one of Freiberger's or Tony's, or is that somebody's thing? Because Jimmy and I have been talking about where we want to run some stuff on the Mustang, but we want to set up, because he has a chassis dyno, we want to set up frame rail engine, driver heat shield kind of shield thing, so that we could just swap things in and out really fast like we would on an engine dyno, but just do that on the chassis dyno. And so we could do really, really quick things, much more than we could on the Mustang. I mean, we could do lots of testing on the Mustang too, but we could do others on a dedicated kind of test piece. Can 1000cc LS injectors be tuned down for NA builds? Yeah, we ran all of the NA stuff that I just ran on the 4.8 or on the 5.3 and the 6.0, run at 420 to 450 horsepower. All of that's with 1000cc injectors. I'm selling a Truck Norris 5.3, be adding a turbo, we'll be running it NA for a while. Yeah, you can, those things idle down just fine. Sometimes difficult to get large injectors idled with a factory ECU. We need a shirt that says the guitar sound that I make. I don't even, I need to remember what song that is. But thousands idle fine. And so do all the 80s. Those are fine also. Thousands not an issue. I mean, we're using a Holley HP, but that shouldn't be a problem either with properly tuned. And we're working on some tuning stuff too. There's a guy that goes by the name of Casey's Customs. He does body swaps and a bunch of fabrication. He swapped a 56 Chevy body onto an 05 or 06 GTO. He had to cut it in half and widen it by 4 inches. Bone marrow was a hot rod garage project. Originally bought a 79 to 81 Camaro for cheap and tried to get it in the 10s for 10,000. I sure would think that that would be possible. Imagine you singing the bass from Friends. No, not that. That's the Bare Naked Ladies, I think, right? The theme from Friends. No, that's not it. The one I was just singing was from an old toy that they had back in the day, and it was from their commercial. I think it'd be interesting if you did some full tunes on a single motor using different ECUs and got your opinion on the ease of use and other things. That really does that for me. That serves no purpose at all, because a lot of people think that the thing that you're using to tune it has an effect on the tune, and that's a misconception. Any tuning thing will allow you to have the right air, fuel, and timing that to make the power. So they all can make, like, if you run it at 12.8 and you run it at 29 degrees of total timing, it makes the power. They all will do that. How you get it there is just really more has to do with your familiarity of the system that you're employing. So if I've run fast a lot and I've run Holly HP a lot and I've run the MS3 Pro and pretty soon the Haltech stuff, things that I'm familiar with and things that other real tuners are familiar with, they could do lots of that stuff. And it's not a problem at all. But none of them are, one of them isn't going to do something better than the others, not in terms of air, fuel, and timing. They may have other things that they may have different number of channels. They may control things, may allow you to control boost and gear and have different numbers of channels for data logging and all that. All of those would be different things. But I'm not really enough of a tuner to go through that. And I don't feel like I'm qualified for that. I like to be sneaky, so 150 nitrous is right down my way. Yeah. Yeah, you can always hide the nitrous. That's pretty easy. As long as you have the proper injector data in the tune, you can get any injector dial, but sometimes it's hard to find the correct data for some injectors. That's one of the problems that guys have with decapped injectors, because you don't have all of these data points for this new injector. It's they may not exist. And if you have all that for a factory injector, you could program that in, then the factory ECU or our modified factory ECU that you're tuning does a much better job, because the issues are more drivability and that kind of stuff for that. That's a much bigger thing. Like the wide open throttle part of it is like next to nothing. The only thing that you have to overcome on factory ECUs, if you're doing HP tuners or these other things and you're doing the factory ECU, is that you have a lot of things that are interdependent. You have a lot of torque multiplication tables or torque limiting tables, or, if you do this, you also have to do this over here. Otherwise it cancels that out. There is a lot of that stuff that's interdependent. And unless you get all of it and know how they are interdependent and understand all of that and have lots of experience with it, the thing's not going to go out and drive the way that it amazingly does when it's all stock. When we make it not stock anymore, that's when problems going to rise, especially if you don't know all of the tables, where they are, what needs to be done, and you haven't done it a whole bunch of times. It's not just intuitive. I mean, the guys that are really good at tuning have gone through all of these problems, and the guys that's really good have gone through more problems than the other guy that's not as good, because he hasn't experienced all those yet and he hasn't figured out what those things are. And the more time that you take to figure out what these issues are and solve these problems, you get a better understanding of now solving future problems. As long as you have the proper injector data and tune. Yep. 300 shot on a stock 5.7 Hemi. What do you think with no ring gap? I think you're very much living on borrowed time. The stock Hemi the stock 5.7 Hemi has fairly tight ring gap, and a 300 shot on a motor that makes 380 or something, the way that we test it when we test a stock one with headers on it, that's a lot. Add ring gap, subtract timing, find the next weakest link. You can guess on flow rate versus KPA, but you still still not able to get the math scale within a good percentage of error, but there are workarounds that you can determine enough. Yeah, but like I talked about, there are workarounds as long as you have gone through this before. It's not easy. It's much better if you have all the data and you can plug it in. It's also much better if there's already a tune that's existing that you just use, or to start from, and then maybe you got to tweak it a little bit. Innovation's a lot easier than invention. Where are we at? Would you pick nitrous over a blower to add 150 horsepower to your 350 horsepower junkyard motor? 6139. It's scaling more toward the nitrous side of things. Now I need to do some measurements. I can tell you that the metros might be wider than the. I'll have to measure that. The metro's probably wider than the Sprint is, but then I need to measure the front wheel drive stuff and see. Be a good little pit cart then. I'll have to hide some nitrous in the Denali. Pretty easy to do on an LS. Unfortunately, HP Tuner's tune repository no longer allows you to share aftermarket tunes, only factory ones. Is 100 horsepower per liter for an NA pretty good? Yeah, that is good. I had a 50 shot to my 165 horsepower motorcycle. Oh yeah, that'd make a big difference. Now having over a 200 horsepower motorcycle, that's good times. Yeah, 100 horsepower per liter out of an LS is good. We did that with a 5.3 with a stock bottom end. That L33. Just if you have the right heads, cam, and intake manifold, you can get up there. If you we did some other tricks on it too. We obviously had a short runner intake. We had really good cylinder heads. We had getting up near the biggest cam that you can put with the available piston to valve clearance. We milled the heads to get a little bit, and this had a flat top piston in it because it was already an L33. Put a 41 gasket on it. We played with a few things. That one made 542. And next I kind of want to do, because for some reason people are much more excited about it, I want to do I'd like to make a 500 horsepower 4.8 because I think people get more excited about that. Well, there he is, huh? Just Brady, huh? What are you doing? You guys did good, huh? We got to go to a soccer game today. I was very excited, huh? Oh, we did. What are you guys doing? I know. You're welcome. Go see mommy. Made 100 horsepower liter with my 427 small block. That's a lot. Yeah, 700 horsepower. That's good. 700 horsepower 427s are good. Lots of probably a lot of LS7 guys doing that because you have cylinder heads that are you have 350 or 400 CFM cylinder heads, kind of like big blocks, that you can get that kind of flow out of it. It makes life a lot easier if you have lots and lots of cylinder head flow. Have you tested what a 5.7 Hemi can handle with some ring gap? We've done more than 1,000 horsepower with turbos or a single turbo on a 5.7 on a stock bottom end 5.7. I don't know. I haven't ever tried to see what it would do with nitrous. Much less, I would guarantee that. Even though if you put ring gap in a Hemi, it does pretty good, but it still has the piston crown's not very big on a Hemi. The distance down to the first ring is not tremendous on a Hemi. Nitrous was just a test. Yeah, but a 50 shot on 165, that's as long as you're hitting it, you know, in the right RPM range. 50 on 165, that's not even 30% or 33%. That's not, so you're good. That's plenty safe. It makes me wonder, where did you add the nitrous at? Are you adding it into the air box? Because you is it a 4-cylinder? Romy has some videos of him doing Gen 3 Hemi 5.7 for like 4 years ago. Like to see some Eagle Hemi runs on the dyno. Yeah, the only ones that I've run that have, I don't know if they're Eagle or Apache heads, but it's a later model 5.7 with a dual runner intake manifold and a VVT cam. I just did some stuff with the guys from Motor Trend let me use their motor that they had. So we have some tests on that, but I haven't run any comparisons of those heads. Like I hit it at the 4,500 RPM. My bike is a 3-cylinder. What RPM does the bike run to, Bigfoot? How high does it zing? $7,500. Okay, that's fairly low for a bike, especially a bike that's making. Is this the bike that you were talking about? It's making 165. Doesn't seem like. The bike is 23. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I was going to say that's a lot of. It's not a lot of RPM. All the 165 horsepower bikes I know are 12, 13, 14,000 RPM. Torque is 185. Yeah, that makes more sense if that at that low engine speed. That would be good. Good stuff. Good times. Good times. 900-pound bike. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big boy. Okay. So I'm making you guys a promise. I'm going to, if I don't come back tomorrow for the live feed, telling you if I don't get the cylinder head off of the sprint motor by tomorrow, by the live feed tomorrow, I'm giving away camshaft. Do you have videos that feature in the cams you have in the store? Yes, there's many that are up. Look up 2007 Triumph Rocket 3. Okay. Yeah, I need the motivation to get that. Got to get the. There's a lot that has to happen for that to happen. The motor and trans are already out. I have to get the other motor and trans out of the way. I gotta jack the car up, back it out. Because I need space to work on the other one. I need to take the turbo assembly off, need to take the intake manifold off, need to take the head off, and then I need to rearrange everything. So gotta get the engine hoist and stuff out of the way, get all that out of the way so that we can have at least a little bit of room in the garage. The Motor Trend 5.7 was Apache Hemi with CNC port heads. The one that I ran was stock. It didn't have CNC heads. I think 750 wheel horsepower would be something safe. 5.7 Hemi with a 28 first ring gap, 30 gap on the second. Yeah, we've made more than that. As long as your tune is right. My tires arrived yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. I've had to buy new tires for the Trail 90. they didn't wear out. They just rotted out probably from being so old and sitting around. They just got all cracked on the sidewall. Eventually they're just going flat. So I got new ones and new tubes, and so I'll put those on, and then it'll be better. 750 wheel horsepower. Oh, on the Dodge Ram. Yeah, you got to make sure that's the case. That's what I was talking to Jimmy about, because we were talking about we're going to do some cool tests. You guys got some cool stuff coming up, but we're going to do some tests on. He has I think it's a Tahoe, and we were talking about. So you guys let me know, if guys that have tested here, when you've run stuff for your LS powered trucks or Tahoes or whatever, and you've run them on the chassis dyno, what gear do you run them in? Because if you run them in third gear, you're going to have a lot of drive shaft speed. Any thoughts on port matching or balancing? Balancing is mandatory. The combination has to be balanced. Port matching, I don't bother with. So we have to take some measurements, see what's up. Yeah, would you port match the plastic manifold to the heads, or like what are you talking about? Port matching the opening of the exhaust to like a header or something, that's not necessary. I don't know that what I tell everybody is, when you look at the gasket manufacturer doesn't design cylinder heads. He also doesn't design headers. He designs gaskets, and he makes the gasket sized so that it goes over and fits most applications. Not this is the optimum size for both of those things. When Dave and C around Engine Masters, I swore I had CNC heads. Maybe that's before they did that. Could have been. Yeah, the one that I had was all stock. First time, and they may have put heads on it after that, because the test that I did was long ago. First time owning a 6-liter in a 2004 2500 HD. Any issues with cam bearing spinning? Not that I know of. I've only ever hurt one cam bearing in any LS test I had, and it was after the 15th or 30th or 50th cam swap that we did. One of the cams, and it was the LS6 cam when I was doing this testing. One of the cams, the journal was bigger than the rest of the other cams were, and it grabbed the bearing and spun the bearing. Autosport second gear. That's what we're thinking, second gear. And the people that I've talked to have said, yeah, you don't want to have. I mean, I think second gear is more than enough speed, and we're also talking about changing the factory drive shaft, anyways, going to something that's not a 2-piece. Invest in a back pressure gauge instead of porting the exhaust. We don't talk about cam bearings. No, we can talk about them. You just can't look at them. Yeah, you have to look the other way. Got to do some hedging, some bush trimming. Trim some bush. It's good. That's like, and mowing the lawns and stuff too. I like that. That's very therapeutic. I like taking something that's not right and then making it right. Also, I want to stroke it to 4 inches for towing power. Yeah, 408 will definitely have more low speed power than a 6-liter does. And I mean, more power everywhere, depending on what you do with it. I'm thinking more about porting the intake and heads, and grinder works on plastic too. I think you can port the cylinder heads. The port matching part of it, like the entry to the head and the exit of the intake manifold, are the least important thing, and will show the least amount of gain than porting anywhere else on the cylinder head. Your optimum areas are the bowl, the combustion chamber, unshrouding the valve, the short turn, And then only after you do all of that, then would I work on, then work on the rest of the port. And then the port match would be the last thing. Send it in third gear. Yeah, that's a lot of speed. I can't believe guys that are like going fast on the freeway in a truck. That I'd like to, you know, especially all the way through third gear and into fourth gear, they would have to have aftermarket aluminum drive shafts or something. I have a 4V 351 Cleveland on 2V heads. Okay. We've run lots of standard oval port or even rec port big block stuff on oval port heads and stuff. This still works. People always think that the air is coming in from the outside into the carburetor, into the manifold, and in. They think that the flow direction is like that. And it is kind of, except that it's being drawn in from the port. So the port is asking to draw air from the manifold. The air is not being forced in, it's being drawn in. And so a different thing is kind of happening than people realize. Carbide bits on a Dremel just melt the plastic. Yeah, it's bad enough when you have an aggressive bit for aluminum, you could take out a lot more than you want. You're like, oh, I need to put some of that back. On plastic, it's even worse. You're like, oh, I'm all the way through to air. I need to be very, very careful about what I'm doing there. 4B means 4 Venturis, 4 barrels. Yep, we speak Cleveland here. Put the Truck Plus cam in my neighbor's LQ4 for his 2500 and a 32 to 3600 stall. He loves it with 799 heads. Yeah, that's more than enough stall converter for that. That thing goes good. That's a lot of converter. What gear does it have, Bigfoot? BF. BF to his friends. Good times, good times. I got to see Todd came down and was asking questions about his tune, but also he came down and gave me some information because he was down at some local wrecking yards, which now I got to go to because he said, oh yeah, there's some 6-liters over there. You need to go check it out. 35-inch tires and a 410 gears. Okay. That's good. That probably feels pretty sporty then. Let's go ahead and close our pull out at 56.44 in favor of the NOS. DMC Bigfoot. Wouldn't your handle be Run DMC? I would like to be that cool. As I mentioned before, previously, we also, as we're winding down here, we only have a couple minutes left. We have turbos in stock. We got some ball bearing, dual ball bearing stuff in stock, some journal bearing stuff. We got the GTX 3584 RS turbos. I'm working on another video that will go up tomorrow. So I have a lot of stuff to do. I got to take that cylinder head off and I got to get that video up and do a live feed and do all my other stuff. So tomorrow's going to be busy, but I've got a video coming up on the cone exhaust, the power cones. Wow. How much power do they make? Boosted Boy's got another Prelude, manual, all-wheel drive, twin H22s. Pretty crazy. That is cool. Third gear will get converter flash. I'll be looking for an LS cam for my truck. We got those. Low buck truck, a low buck truck, and one of the G42 turbos. It will max the turbo out. You can get 1200 horsepower if that's what you want. It's been a while since I looked at the offerings. I guess I used to offer up to 400 wheel, I think, turbo. Yep, power cones, the exhaust. So Robert, the thing is, the test was, we already did it, is if you have a turbo and the exit of the turbo is designed for like a 3-inch tube. So it's got a V-band and it's designed for a 3-inch tube. And actually, honestly, if you look at the turbos, the inside diameter of that exit for the exducer of the turbine side is smaller than that. So it's smaller than 3 inches, but it's designed to use a 3-inch exhaust that V-band clamps on there. What happens if you go bigger even than that? So what we did is you take a cone and you go from 3-inch to 3.5 or to 4, and then we V-band another, because it's V-band, it just gets bigger. V-band another section of exhaust pipe on there to see if that affects the turbo. Does the turbo, like, even though it's designed for that 3-inch exhaust, does it gain? Is there power gain from putting the bigger exhaust on there? And the answer is yes. That's just right off the bat. It's yes. And it was yes on both turbos, both on the G42 and on the 3584. It wants to be big. Blower on, just need to add a belt. Cool. Tom's doing a big boy blower on there. The big gapper. What is that throttle body, Tom? Near. I need to order some more cams. I'm getting a little late. That's what I like to hear. Richard, you're interested in a 71 Chevy Impala. Are you asking if I'm interested in that? Did you get taller shirts? Our next shirt order, we will get some. We don't have any in the wrong cam ones left. But let's see what a 1971 Impala looks like. Yeah, what's up? There are 175 1971 Impalas for sale right now. 69 is 71. I don't even know what does that Impala look like? Wow, the sale price for those is dropping. Max dry shot through a plate system on a 416 LS, Holly controlled. The amount that your jets and it's probably going to be limited by your solenoids, I would imagine. But the amount of nitrous that I would run through a 416 or any motor would be a function of whatever it makes naturally aspirated. Putting finishing touches on my Focus ZX3. Very nice. I'm a fan. Previous owner. When I send the Ilmore intake to you, do you want the injectors in it? Do you know? I know you're going to want the fuel rail since it's specific for the intake manifold. Yeah, the rails would definitely have to be there. I don't know what length the injectors are. We have a variety of different injectors that we can try in it. Don't plan on doing it now, but how much nitrous can you put through a stock LS1 safely? Like I said, I've about 50% of the NA power output is the rule that I use. But you should use, you're gonna have to take away timing, and it depends on the fuel that you're using and stuff. You want to have all that be right when you're trying to go to the maximum. We tried to put 500 horsepower to a 500 horsepower motor, 500 horsepower with a nitrous, but I didn't do it correctly. I think it could be done. It definitely could be done better than I did it last time. What's the plan for the longer shirts? I don't know what you mean. What is the plan? We just order a different supplier. We just see if we'd have to see if somebody has longer ones. And on that note, it is time to go. So now I got to go out and do some prepping, make sure I get the cylinder head off, which I will. It's just moving things around and buzzing that off. Now I have to, because it's been a long time. It's been decades now since I've worked on a Sprint turbo. I got to make sure, and I do this on LS stuff anyways, to bag everything up, which I didn't do when I first started taking. Well, now the motor's already out, the motor and transfer already out, and I didn't keep all of the stuff bagged and organized for what bolts go where. And you should always do that, and I didn't do that. I'm going to start doing it now, so at least I'll have all the intake bolts will be the same, all the front cover bolts will be the same, all the exhaust bolts will be the same. They'll all be bagged and labeled so that I know where they go. Because unlike an LS, I can look at an LS bolt and go, oh yeah, that's a front cover bolt, or that's a rear cover bolt, or oil pan bolt, or whatever. I know where all those are. But having not done as many 1 liter Sprint builds as I have LS builds, anyone know of any reputable tuners in the Northwest PA area? Scott, before too long, I'm gonna have answers for that. Not specifically in that area, but we'll have stuff for you, but not right now. I'll just toss injectors with you and you can do what you want with them. But the throttle is drive-by-wire, and know you're going to want to use drive-by cable. Yeah, what size throttle body is that thing set up for? Remember, some of us guys are tall. The 3XL is a little short, so let me know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have. What did you say that you were, 6'7" or something? We don't have a lot of guys that are that tall. We want a free cam. Stay longer. Yeah. If you're in central Iowa, swing by. I work at a Kawasaki Suzuki Triumph dealer. I think it's a 102. Okay. I wouldn't think that a factory one would be that big. I would think it would be 90 like all the rest of their stuff. But yeah, let me know. Either way, we have something for it. So my question for you is, I'm getting ready to order the fuel pump and injector setup for my 07 Tahoe. When I emailed you, you said the pump is not a direct drop in. Give me an idea on what to do. When you take your pump assembly apart, this pump will bolt in. It's just that this pump was not designed specifically for your application. So you may have to, I think this comes with a sock and stuff. So more than likely, it will, I don't remember specifically on an 07, but it should kind of bolt right in. It's just not going to be, I don't want you to think it's going to be like, it's not a direct replacement for an 07. Oh, Tim, what's going on? And I even had pizza yesterday and today, that should make you feel better. Usually you need to modify the fuel hanger to fit the new pump. Okay. Yes, like I said, there may be some things that are the way that after you connect the pump to the fuel line and run the wires, that's not usually a problem. But the length of the pump and then the size of the sock and the opening in the pump sometimes doesn't match perfectly the lower retainer for that. So you may need to, finagle it. You may need to zip tie it. Just you can make it work. I'll check. I haven't removed the throttle body yet. I'll measure my fast 102 and measure the Ilmore. Yeah, I'd be surprised. I've never seen a factory thing that's that big. The biggest factory ones I've seen are 90, and so I suspect that's what it is, but I have no experience with that thing at all. Let's look at an AMR 500 video. I got myself a Gen 1 a couple days ago. I was wondering if a supercharger is a better option than turbo for such a small engine. A Gen 1, what are you talking about? A Metro? I was wondering if it's going to go in my stock housing. Yeah, it will bolt in there. You just need to make it work a little bit. The Gen 1 Metro. Okay. What year is it? Fuel cell is the answer. Yeah, I'm going to put a fuel cell in the Sprint. But I wouldn't use an AMR 500 for the guy that's asking about the Metro. I would use a turbo. 1990. Yeah, I would use a turbo. Belt on, starting in the morning. All right, Tom, let me know how that goes. It's a power gain worth the upgrade to a fast on a turbo 5.3 over a stock truck intake manifold. No. Well, it is worth power, definitely, but you already have the ability to go from where the stock manifold is to where the fast is by just turning the boost up. I don't know what size turbo you have, but if you still have 1 or 2 pounds left or whatever, that's what a fast is just 1 more pound. So I wouldn't do that. I just turn the boost up 1 pound, and then boom, you did that. You got all the power that you wanted, and it didn't cost you anything. You found a horsepower limit on 90 millimeter throttle bodies with boost. There is no limit on horsepower with a 90 millimeter throttle body with boost. If you keep changing the pressure that goes in there, you keep changing the flow rate. So that's not a thing. I mean, if I was doing 3,000 horsepower, would I have a bigger throttle body than that, or would I have 2 of them? Yeah, I would, but not for anything that we're talking about. Plus and minuses on an LS3 block. It's aluminum, but it's aluminum, and so I wouldn't do really high horsepower stuff with it. Having boarded a 6.4 and sleeved it by Dart. Oh, okay. If you're having a sleeve, then I wouldn't worry about it. You're fine. What's the most horsepower you've seen on a cam only for a 5.3? I don't know that I've ever done that metric. If you're talking about which 5.3 are you talking about? Because lots of them start out at with different intakes, different cylinder heads, and different pistons and stuff. So I don't know which one you're talking about, but you could gain, if you put the biggest cam that you could fit in there with stock available piston to valve clearance, I'm thinking you could gain near 100 horsepower. What fuel pumps did you run for your G42? We have the VORTEC dyno has the brushless aeromotive pumps on it. So we got way more fuel pump than we need. And the only time throttle body matters is on an Eden. Yeah, on a draw through application, throttle body size is a critical thing. Then it's easy to have that become a restriction. But on a blow through, that's not an issue. M90 North Star throttle body adapters going crazy. Do you mean people are buying those? And on that note, it's time to go. I got work to do. I got stuff to do. I already started editing this video, so it's good stuff. Excuse me. I will see you guys all tomorrow.